Salutations everybody, it is Matty here today, and we are gathering once more to talk about Ubisoft. I hope you're all having an absolutely excellent day. Today's topics are ones that could end up in a really positive place, but we're going to obviously remain objective, keep our head above water here. We are talking about Ubisoft, and their recent track record hasn't been that great, but when we're talking about Star Wars Outlaws and the updates that Ubisoft wants to bring to the table in just a few short weeks here, they are targeting, in my opinion, the biggest problems with the game. Like the main ones I called out in my review, beyond the bugs and the animation, which I don't think are going to be totally changed by that point in time, but things in the gameplay, the decision making there was so perplexing to me. We'll get into it more, but they're making changes there with a brand new creative director at the helm, so we'll also get into what that can mean for the future of Star Wars Outlaws. Second topic on the docket is going to be Assassin's Creed Shadows once more. They're kicking up a brand new modern day storyline for this game, and I saw a lot of press outlets when covering this spinning it as an immediate positive for the game, a rare positive for the game as IGN put it, and I found this very surprising because it felt like a lot of these outlets were largely disconnected from what Assassin's Creed has been trying to do since Desmond's story ended in 2012 with Assassin's Creed 3. And yeah, they've tried multiple modern storylines, and they've tried ones that have stretched across multiple entries, even like they did with Origins into Odyssey and into Valhalla. So this has been attempted before. I don't know why them confirming a brand new modern day story is something that exactly brings excitement to a new level when they have attempted this, but nonetheless, I want to read the words from Ubisoft and talk a bit more about what a modern day story can do for the franchise and how I think people are looking at this a bit with rose-tinted glasses. I'll get into it all in just a little bit, but ladies and gentlemen, welcome. If you're new here and you're into just talking about what's going on with Ubisoft, we kind of hopped on that train a couple months ago. It's been enjoyable talking about a different company from my usual wheelhouse with like Bethesda and CD Projekt Red and BioWare and so on and so forth. It's been nice to kind of branch out beyond just RPG games and take a look at something like Ubisoft and what they are bringing to the table, which as of lately hasn't been much, and they did shut down the one team with Prince of Persia that did bring something to the table. But nonetheless, let's get into it, starting off with Star Wars Outlaws. So for those who didn't catch my review, the too long didn't read for it is that it was the thinnest margin between, I don't do number scores, but really like the thinnest margin between a 5 and a 7 or an 8. Like there were so many little decisions that this game could have made that could have brought it to a much more respectable area for me. And as you'll see in my review, the least of my complaints really has to do with the story. Like I kind of enjoyed K-Vest. I liked the ideas with the story, and I felt like they didn't take the obvious route constantly. Was it the best story I played this year? Certainly not. Was it the best Star Wars story I've seen? Definitely not. But I thought it was serviceable enough where if it was surrounded by really good gameplay, it actually would have been a really surprisingly decent package. Well, Ubisoft has a brand new creative director at the top of Star Wars Outlaws in Drew Reckner, as announced here in their reflection on the launch of the game. This is in their first developer update posted on their Star Wars Outlaws blog. And for those who don't know, the former creative director for Star Wars Outlaws was Julian Garrity, who's now moved on to work on Division 3, and I actually interviewed him with the launch of Division 1, if I remember correctly. So he's been there a long while, and I think Division's always been awesome, so he's kind of going back to what I think his bread and butter is. But they say here in this post, your feedback has already resulted in 3 title updates in which we focused on fixing some of your biggest concerns, such as bugs, reducing major friction points in some key missions, particularly around stealth, and adjusting the speeder, camera, and collision, as well as much more. That being said, there are 3 key areas in which we are looking to improve the game even further. The first key area of improvement to the game is combat, where we see a real opportunity to add some more depth and excitement to the experience, further rewarding your tactics and precision. Our second key area is stealth, which is not only about improving the readability and consistency of enemy detection, but also providing choice in how you want to approach each encounter. Finally, our third key area of focus is centered around the character controls, which means improving the reliability of cover, increasing the responsiveness of climbing and crouching, and generally improving the consistency of the controls overall. You can expect to see more details about how we will be celebrating and embracing player choice more than ever before, whether it's sneaking through encounters, going in guns blazing, or everything in between. We will provide more specific details about the changes to these areas and more in the upcoming weeks as we provide further updates to you. All of this will culminate in the release of Title Update 1.4, which will release on November 21st alongside the Steam launch, and the first story pack, Star Wars Outlaws Wildcard. Okay, so I'm a diehard Star Wars fan, which meant that when I had to come out and say like Star Wars Outlaws was not really good at all, in my opinion, when it came to its gameplay experience, that was a bummer, because I remember pre-launch thinking, okay, I think Ubisoft's going to miss on the story. They're not going to provide anything really original there, and the gameplay should be the sure bet. Like, I was totally cool with typical Ubisoft open world fodder, but it's in a Star Wars setting. That's kind of what I wanted at the end of the day, and I didn't get that, and I was very disappointed about that. But it was also just the little decisions, like you can only use Kay Vess's blaster pistol. You can't carry any other weapons, and that changes how you approach scenarios because the stealth is really limited. You do get a stun shot on your pistol, but you only get to shoot it off like once every couple of minutes. It was so confusing. Otherwise, you have to stealth take down everyone with melee. Again, just there were so many options to make this game easily better, and I am looking forward to trying this out. I will say that, okay, I have not tried any of the recent title updates, but this here, like word for word, bar for bar, is targeting like my 3 key issues with the game, which was stealth, player choice with the weapons that you bring into encounters, as well as enemy detection, which we know the AI in this game was horrible. And I would say out of everything I have the least expectations for, it's AI. It's the way the enemies maneuver in the environment. Like, I don't have high expectations there, but I will give the game a second chance in a reinstall and see what's going on there. Because again, as I said, either in my review or on Defining Duke, I don't remember exactly, it was such a thin line between this game being the dud I felt it was and actually being something kind of great. So in the spirit of openness and objectivity, I'm not getting hyped here, but I am just taking a look at this update and thinking, okay, they have their eyes in the right place. We'll see if they adjust, and no doubt, I agree with everyone else, it should have been this way at launch, and definitely no doubt that it is perplexing to me that none of this was caught during like early game testing, saying like, hey, stealth doesn't feel great here. Can we kind of budge on this stuff? Maybe that's why it's a good thing that we're getting a new creative director at the helm. Maybe they can redeem Star Wars Outlaws a bit. This definitely isn't how Ubisoft drew it all up. Like, this game was just supposed to explode on the sales charts. It failed to do that. So they're doubling down, addressing player feedback. They mentioned in this thread here that they actually looked at like YouTube videos and Reddit posts and just kind of tried to take it as constructively as they could. And I think that's good, because a lot of what I tried to provide in my review was like attempts at putting clips out there that were saying, hey, like the facial animations in certain conversations, just not acceptable. The combat and the enemy detection, just not acceptable. Like, I think Ubisoft has a long way to go to reach their maximum potential, but I do think they were capable of much more with Star Wars Outlaws. So that's what's going on there. Just a couple of weeks until we get an update on that. I think many people feel Ubisoft is beyond redemption, and I get that, but since I already have a digital copy of the game, I'll re-download the game, try out the free update, see what's going on, probably make a video on it, frankly, because it is a game I do want to enjoy. Like, I was so set on 100%ing that game, and I do think like there are other problems with it, such as navigation. We can get into that a separate time around, but I do want to try it out, see what's going on there, keep an open mind to it. So we'll talk then when that update drops and see what's happening. Otherwise, though, let's get into Assassin's Creed, where IGN posts Assassin's Creed Shadows will begin a new modern-day story after the series post-Desmond Blues. Apologies if I say this name wrong. Mark Alexis Cote, Ubisoft's vice president executive producer of Assassin's Creed, said at a British Academy of Film and Television Arts event attended by Eurogamer that Ubisoft has, quote, struggled to find its footing, end quote, with the modern-day aspect of Assassin's Creed in recent years. Desmond's journey was at the heart of modern-day conflict, driving the search for powerful Isu artifacts, pieces of Eden that could change the course of history, Cote said. However, with the death at the end of Assassin's Creed 3, we faced a creative crossroads. Ending Desmond's arc was a difficult decision, and afterward, the modern storyline struggled to find its footing. Assassin's Creed Shadows looks to return some direction to the franchise, though. As we move forward, our goal is to put history back at the center of the player's experience, Cote said. The modern-day narrative will serve to enhance rather than overshadow the historical journey. By drawing meaningful contrast between past and present, we aim to restore the balance that was once the hallmark of the franchise. The modern-day storyline will explore deeper themes of memory, identity, and autonomy, how the past shapes who we are, and how controlling this past can impact our future. These themes will allow us to reflect on contemporary issues, freedom versus control, the power of knowledge, and the tension between individuality and conformity, all through the lens of history. The groundwork for this new direction will take shape with Assassin's Creed Shadows, which will lay the foundation for this narrative evolution that will grow in the years to come. So I have many thoughts on this. For starters, I'm a little surprised by the optimism surrounding this, and maybe it's just purely anecdotal. I'm not running with hard facts here, just kind of what I saw as someone who grew up with Assassin's Creed, like many of you, is that I felt like the conversation was always, ugh, the modern day story. Oh, it's pulling me out of the Animus when I was just getting into my flow with the open world, with the character I was playing as, and I was enjoying that. But now the Animus thing is happening, and I'm out in the modern world, and I'm playing as Desmond. I don't care about this. Like, that's what I remember from that stretch of time. And over time, Ubisoft tried to shrink it more and more, where I remember specifically with Assassin's Creed 4, which I know is post-Desmond, a lot of people were really happy with the idea of like, hey, you barely get taken out of the Animus in this game. And that's because the focus of Assassin's Creed 4 and Rogue was that you were researching for movies, basically, which I thought was just a absolutely ridiculous idea. And I do think Ubisoft got caught flat-footed. It was the right call to end Desmond's story. I think they gave it a lot of time and attention, and there is a thing such as going on for too long. So they were right to, I think, cut it there. However, at the same time, they got caught flat-footed in a way that I think of Marvel a bit. Like after Endgame, it was like, okay, we're good. Like, I don't know where we go to next. And Marvel really showed that because they seemed to not know where they wanted to go to next. But Ubisoft would try again with modern day stories like they did in things in Origins, in Odyssey, as well as Valhalla. They continue to try this stuff, but nothing really grabbed in the way that Desmond's story did. And I don't know if it ever really can, because it was just such a time capsule thing where Assassin's Creed really began with Desmond and this idea of, hey, you know, this is a character who has deep-rooted history with these assassins, and this Assassins versus Templar storyline is still going on to this day. And so there's an element of self-discovery at the same time as learning that this war is not just in this time period you're researching, but still kind of goes on to this day. So there was something captivating in that. It was new, it was different, but now that it's been done, it's kind of like how Ubisoft was looking for their next Ezio, and you kind of got that with Arno in Assassin's Creed Unity, where they just went like, hey, let's give him all the same personality traits, the same kind of approach to this character, except he's got a different name. Like, Ubisoft really struggles, in my opinion, to walk away from their best ideas and create new ones. I always think of Far Cry 6 as a perfect example, where they had the same mission of like burning down drug farms like they did in Far Cry 3, and I see that and I go, yeah, that was great in Far Cry 3. Like, that was such a fun moment. It was so different. And that's what made it special. Like, you did it there. You don't got to do it again. It doesn't have to be a trend. It doesn't have to be a thing. And I know Assassin's Creed as a series has been defined by modern day storytelling, but I do think there are ways to rethink how you can approach Assassin's Creed without going back to the well and representing it in a way like you haven't necessarily done that before. Like, you've tried to start up new modern day storylines, spin them up, keep them going, keep them interesting, but out of the way. Granted, I will keep an open mind and try it for myself, of course, but I find it hard to imagine Ubisoft winning in an environment like that, because you're either pulling people away from the thing they like, which at least with Desmond's story, you were kind of trained to expect that, but then they got away from it, right? And people were like, oh, this is great. I actually like this. But the other people have come to appreciate that modern day storyline. I remember speaking with a few YouTubers about it in the deep Assassin's Creed focused retrospectives they made, like Lasers did, where they just went in on the story and how impactful and well told it was, and that this was really Ubisoft at their best. And so I do think there was, at least for people like me, a late blooming appreciation for what Ubisoft pulled off between Assassin's Creed 1 and 3. You know, Assassin's Creed Shadows is already fighting an uphill battle. I'm really cheering for it. Like, I hope it ends up turning out well, because I like the focus on stealth gameplay. It reminds me a little bit of Splinter Cell, and I think that's what's been missing from Assassin's Creed for a long while, like since Assassin's Creed Unity, in my opinion, where you could actually stealth and you had different options of approach. Like, that's what I've been looking for from the franchise on a gameplay level. So I am cheering for it. I hope it does well, but it's fighting an uphill battle with all of the controversy it has gone through. Now they're committing to an element of the game that I think people want to see come back, but I don't know if it's kind of rose-tinted glasses that are affecting that desire for it to come back, because I don't know if you can bring back modern-day storytelling in Assassin's Creed unless you bring back Desmond, because then you're kind of tickling the nostalgia nerve, and maybe more people are open to this thing that they were once familiar with modern-day Assassin's Creed stories. We'll see. Again, I don't want to call the verdict here. Naturally, I would never do that, but I look at this and I kind of scratch my head a little bit at some of the general reaction to it. Got to keep it real, because, again, I just feel like I remember hearing people moan about this, then it became a part of the audience that ended up really liking it, and then Ubisoft kind of got away from it, came back to it. and now they're announcing it like they're getting back to it after like 12 years of not doing it, when that's not the case at all. So we'll see what happens. I'm looking forward to playing Assassin's Creed Shadows either way. With that, ladies and gentlemen, I look forward to hearing your thoughts on both these topics down below. Fire away. Other than that, take excellent care of yourselves, and I will see you in the next video. Stay sexy, stay active. I love you all. Peace.